Hello everyone, this is the lecture for 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts. If my voice is audible, please comment in the section. Right. So today we are going to discuss the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts. '73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts. Right. So let us begin. So before starting this particular topic, let me tell you in brief the background about panchayats. So first we will do the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. Basically these two amendment acts are about panchayats and 74th is about the urban local bodies. 73rd is about the rural local bodies and 74th amendment is about the urban local bodies. These are very important provisions. The voice quality is a bit low. Yes, in case of removal of a Supreme Court judge, special majority is needed in the House. Now, special majority means the majority that is mentioned under Article 368 of the Constitution, which is the majority of the total membership of the House as well as 2/3 of members present and voting. That is the type of majority which is required in the House if we want to remove a judge under the Judges Inquiry Act 1968. So, we are discussing the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. First of all, let us see the background. Article 40 of the Constitution of India, which falls under Part 4 of the Constitution, that deals with the directive principles of state policy. Under Article 40 of the Constitution of India, the founding fathers of the Constitution had said, they had instructed to the government that provisions should be made for the villages to carry their own administration at the decentralized level. So, Article 40 directly hinted at establishing panchayats in India. However, panchayat is not a new institution. Panchayats have been there in India for time immemorial. But the legislative framework, the legal provisions for panchayats were absent. Or even if there were any provisions, they were not there in the Constitution of India. Therefore, at that time this provision was made only in the directive principles, and the reason for that was that the founding fathers of the Constitution knew that the country is to be united at that point of time. So, in 1950 they did not grant powers to panchayats and municipalities for the same reason that the country is already on the verge of division. So many princely states were to be integrated into India, and if had they given constitutional powers to all the villages and city administrations, they would have become so powerful that they would have started demanding independence from the Union of India, and at that time it could not be afforded. Therefore, deliberately this provision was not there in the Constitution of India, so it was only made a directive. Now, becoming a directive means it was non-justiciable in nature. It was non-justiciable or non-enforceable in nature. So, no one could demand panchayats to be given constitutional powers as a matter of right, because it was a directive. So, the constitutional makers were aware that the panchayats and municipalities cannot be granted constitutional position at the right after the independence of India. So, they wanted the government to take a decision as and when the time arrives. Therefore, Article 40 was the only provision regarding panchayats in the Constitution of India. However, the development of constitution has happened in various phases in India. The development of the Panchayati Raj bodies in India has taken quite some time. There were various committees which were constituted time to time so that the legislative framework can be provided to panchayats and municipalities. The first such committee was the Balwant Rai Mehta Committee. Now, this particular committee was constituted in the year 1957, just 7 years after the constitution came into force, and the mandate of this committee was to analyze the working of the community development program, to examine or to analyze the working of the community development program or CDP and the National Extension Service or NES. So, these were the two schemes which were going on under the union government for the development of community and for the development of agriculture in India. So, this particular committee was constituted in this particular year to review these two schemes. However, the hidden line motive of this committee was to recommend framework or to recommend measures to improve the panchayats in India. Panchayats were already there, but they did not have powers under the constitution till that time. Many years after that, a second committee was constituted known as the Ashok Mehta Committee. This committee was constituted in the year 1977. Now, the mandate of this committee was to strengthen the Panchayati Raj system. The mandate of this committee was to strengthen the Panchayati Raj system. That means the Panchayati Raj system was already there, but every state had their own laws. For example, the Panchayat had Punjab Panchayati Raj Act or the Punjab Municipal Corporations Act, and every other state had their own laws, but those laws were not uniform in nature. So, in some states the panchayats were working really well, whereas in other states the panchayat were not working well. So, it was totally left to the whims and wishes of the state government concerned, and there was no uniformity throughout India. Therefore, to review and to strengthen the Panchayati Raj system, this particular committee was constituted in the year 1977. The third important committee was the G.V.K. Rao Committee. These committees are very important. These four committees are very important. It was constituted in the year 1985, and their mandate is also very important. Many a time in the MCQs you get this question that what was the mandate of Ashok Rai Mehta Committee or what was the mandate of the G.V.K. Rao Committee. So, you should know. So, the mandate of the G.V.K. Rao Committee was rural development primarily, and the poverty alleviation programs. So, the main purpose of G.V.K. Rao Committee was to review rural development and poverty alleviation programs. Now, rural development here simply means the rural development could be done by democratic decentralization. That means the village heads or the village committees were to be granted powers, and to review their working, G.V.K. Rao Committee was constituted. However, just like the earlier committees, no action was taken on this committee's recommendations as well. Some critics suggest that these committees, although they were being constituted since 1957, they were a ploy to delay the grant of constitutional status to panchayats. They were deliberately formed after a few years so that the demands for constitutional provisions for panchayats can be curbed, so that those who are protesting for granting more rights, powers and duties to the panchayats, they can be pacified. So this is the criticism of these committees, since no action was taken on any of these committees. Finally, at the fourth number is the LM Singhvi committee. This committee proved to be a landmark in the establishment of Panchayati Raj system in India. This committee was constituted in the year 1986, and the mandate of this particular committee was to revitalize the Panchayati Raj institutions. Again, somewhat similar. So, revitalization of panchayats was the mandate of this particular committee. So, the task of this committee was to recommend measures through which the Panchayati Raj institution in India can be revitalized. Now, revitalization here means that many of the panchayats in various states were facing a lot of problems. Although either there were irregular elections, or there was lack of financial devolution, or they were totally ineffective, or there was corruption, or there was a lack of uniformity in their functioning. So, there were a lot of problems in Panchayati Raj institutions, and to revitalize those institutions, this committee was constituted. Now, the major recommendation of this particular committee was, this committee demanded that the Panchayati Raj institutions should be given constitutional status. Constitutional status to the Panchayati Raj institutions, or the PRIs. Now, this particular recommendation was a game changer as far as panchayats were concerned. So, this was the committee that recommended that constitutional status be given to panchayats, just like there is provision for union executive, union legislature and union judiciary in the constitution under part 5, and there is a provision for state legislature, state executive and state judiciary under part 6 of the constitution. This committee recommended that a separate part be added to the constitution, and the provisions for all the Panchayati Raj bodies, their elections, their financial devolution and their composition should be put into the constitution, so that there is uniformity throughout India, and so that these bodies can gain their due powers and due responsibilities that was envisaged under Article 40 of the constitution, that is the directive principle of state policy. So, this committee recommended that now is the time when Article 40, that is non-justiciable and non-enforceable, should actually become enforceable, because it was the year 1986 and more than 40 years, around 40 years had passed since India became independent. Therefore, according to this committee, this was the right time to grant powers to the panchayats. And in pursuance of this particular recommendation, the 73rd constitutional amendment was passed. So, these are the 4 different important committees. You should remember their years, also their mandate is very important, and you should know that it was the LM Singhvi committee based on whose recommendations the constitutional amendment 73rd and 74th were passed. So, it was the LM Singhvi committee which actually recommended that unless you give constitutional status to panchayats and municipalities, their functioning and their powers will not improve. There were various other committees as well, but these are the 4 important committees. So, in pursuance to the recommendation of this particular committee, 2 amendments were passed, the 73rd amendment and the 74th amendment. So, these 2 important amendments were passed in the year 1993. 73rd amendment added part 9 to the constitution, which included articles 243 to 243O. It also added schedule 11 to the constitution. Similarly, the 74th amendment added part 9A to the constitution, which had articles 243P to 243ZG, and it added schedule 12 to the constitution. So, these were the two amendments which were passed by the Parliament of India, and they were implemented in the year 1993. So, first of all, we will talk about the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1992, which was implemented in 1993. So, let us see the important features of the 73rd Amendment Act. Now, we will be discussing Articles 243 to 243O. So, Article 243A, it talks about Gram Sabha. Now, Gram Sabha simply means the total electorate of a village. Gram Sabha simply means the electorate of a village. That means all the adult population of a village is Gram Sabha. So, if there are 200 people in a village, and out of that say 150 people are such who are above 18 years of age, and they have the voter ID card of that particular village, then those 150 people will become the Gram Sabha of that particular village. That means children are not included in Gram Sabha. So, Gram Sabha means the electorate or the adult population of a village who have their voter ID cards of that particular village. That is the Gram Sabha. Then Article 243B talks about the three-tier system of panchayats. The three-tier system of panchayats. Under this three-tier system, there are basically three bodies which are organically linked to each other. First of all, the first level is the bottom level, which is the village. So, at every village there will be a panchayat or a gram panchayat. This is the bottom level and the grassroots level. At the second level, that is the intermediate level, there is a block, and a block is nothing but a group of villages. In a block there can be any number of villages. It varies from state to state. So, very importantly, I should tell you in the first go that panchayats as a subject falls under the state list, that is under Schedule 7 of the Constitution. So, under Schedule 7 of the Constitution, panchayat is a state subject. That means there can be variations as far as these panchayats are concerned. So, at the intermediate level there is block, and in block there can be any number of villages. There can be 5 villages, 10 villages, 20, 30, 50 villages, that depends on that particular state. So, at the intermediate level there is block samiti. Then at the top level there is district, and at the district level there is Zilla Parishad. There is Zilla Parishad. So, this is the three-tier system of the Panchayati Raj institutions which every state has to follow. However, there is one exception here. So, a state which has population of less than 20 lakhs, a state that has population of less than 20 lakhs, they do not need to form the intermediate level panchayats. They do not need to form the intermediate level panchayats. That means, if a state has population of less than 20 lakhs, they can simply have the gram panchayats, and after that they can simply have Zilla Parishads. They do not need to form block samitis as such, because the size of the state is so small that for administrative convenience no third level is required at all. They can do away with the second level, and there will be just village panchayats and the Zilla Parishad. That is the provision that is granted under the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act. The third provision is under Article 243C is the election of members and chairpersons of these panchayats. So, how will be the members elected? So, for example, if we take the example of Gram Panchayat, So every village has a panchayat. Not in the Government of India Act 1935, but under the 7th schedule of the Constitution of India, they are under the state list. So the election of members and chairpersons, say there is a gram panchayat, so in a gram panchayat there is one sarpanch and then there are various panches, then there are various other panches. For example, that depends on the population of a village. So if a village is, say, that again varies from state to state. For example, if a state has said that for every village that has below 500 population, there will be 3-member body, that means there will be one sarpanch and there will be 2 other panches. Then if the population of the village is between 500 to 1000, then there will be a 5-member body, that means there will be one sarpanch and 4 panches. So that means the sarpanch is the chairperson and the panches are the members of this particular body. So what is the provision for election to these bodies? That means the members at all the 3 levels are elected. The members at all the 3 levels are elected, that too directly. That means the people of the villages vote to elect the members of Gram Panchayat, Block Samiti as well as Zilla Parishad. However, when it comes to the chairpersons of these bodies, the members of the intermediate and top level are to be indirectly elected. The chairpersons of these 2 bodies are to be indirectly elected. But when it comes to the sarpanches, that is the chairperson of a gram panchayat, that is decided by the state government. So as the state government decides, that means in various states the sarpanches of gram panchayats are chosen in different manner. So say in Punjab, for example, in Punjab, if the sarpanches are to be chosen directly by the people, then it can be so provided by the Punjab state government, and if in Haryana it is indirectly, then that means the panches will choose the sarpanch. So it can be either direct election or indirect election, that depends on the state. So there is no uniformity as far as the election of sarpanch is concerned, but there is uniformity as far as the election of the chairperson of Block Samiti and Zilla Parishad is concerned. After that, there is a provision under Article 243D of the Constitution for the reservation of seats. Reservation of seats in all the 3 bodies, in Gram Panchayat, in Block Samiti as well as in Zilla Parishad. Now the reservation is to be provided to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, to women and to the other backward classes. So to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, the reservation is to be provided in proportion to their population. For example, if in a particular village 50% of the people are scheduled castes and 50% of the people are scheduled tribes and there is no other category, that means in the total composition of that particular body in that particular village, say in the Gram Panchayat, half will be scheduled caste and half will be scheduled tribes. Similarly, if in a particular village there are no scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, that means no reservation is to be granted in that particular village to scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. So it totally depends upon their proportion in the population of that particular village. Only then they will be granted reservation, and in that proportion as well. For women, 1/3 reservation has been provided. Now this provision can be enhanced, but it cannot be reduced. There are various states that have provided more than 1/3 reservation to women. For example, Haryana. Now Haryana has made a provision in their Panchayati Raj Act that women shall be provided 50% of reservation or 1/2 of reservation in the Panchayati Raj bodies. So, the states can increase this particular reservation, but they cannot reduce this reservation in their states. That means at least 1/3 reservation has to be provided to women, but it can be increased also. As far as the reservation to OBCs is concerned, it is not mandatory under the constitution, it is to be decided by the state concerned. So, any state may or may not provide a reservation to the other backward classes, that depends on that particular state. Therefore, it is not a mandatory provision. Article 243E talks about the duration of panchayats. So, the duration of panchayats is simply 5 years. Any panchayat once elected shall work for 5 years, and if the panchayat is dissolved, then within 6 months elections have to be held in that particular panchayat. However, this is one such provision which was violated a lot before 73rd constitutional amendment came into being. That means in various states elections were not held regularly, and that is why there was a need was felt that constitutional status be provided to the Panchayati Raj institutions. Article 243F talks about the disqualifications of candidates, the provisions on which the candidates can be disqualified from fighting the election of panchayats. Now, in this provision, there is one particular provision that is there, that if a person, now let me first tell you that to get elected as a panch or a sarpanch or any member or chairperson of any of the other two bodies, that is the Gram Panchayat, the Block Samiti or the Zilla Parishad, the minimum age that is mentioned is 25 years. So, if a person is below 25 years, that should not, he or she should not contest for the office of member or chairperson of any of the Panchayati Raj bodies. However, under Article 243F it is mentioned that a person shall not be disqualified if he is 21 years of age. Now, that simply means that anyone who is 21 years of age can contest the elections of panchayats at any of the 3 levels. So, we have also seen various, we also come across various news items in newspapers and in various online forums, that there are youngsters who are taking up this particular, who are fighting these elections and who are trying to make a change in their particular villages. There have been various news items which portray that there is a young woman or a young man who has who has educated himself or herself and now has gone back to their village, and then they have fought the elections of panchayats and now they are trying to transform their villages. So, they are very young, they are sometimes 23, 24 or 27, 28 years of age, and they are trying to make a change in their particular villages by fighting the elections and by winning those elections. So, 21 years is the minimum age. Then Article 243G talks about the powers and functions of panchayats, the powers and functions of the Panchayati Raj institutions. Now, various powers and functions have been granted to panchayats, and those functions are mentioned in Schedule 11 of the Constitution. Now, Schedule 11 lists 29 functions of panchayats. That means Schedule 11 is actually an extension of Schedule 7. So, Schedule 7 talks about the union list, state list and concurrent list. So, they talk about the just top 2 levels of Indian administration, the union government and the state government. But after that there is a third level or third tier of administration, which is the local self-government. So, for local self-government, Schedule 11 specifies 29 functions which panchayats have to take care of. The functions that panchayats are entrusted with include the village roads, the fairs that have to be undertaken in villages, then the irrigation of villages, Then there is sanitation and cleanliness in villages, the maintenance of funerals, the maintenance of the cemeteries, then there is water supply in that particular village, then the cleanliness of that village, then there is a healthcare facilities, the basic healthcare facilities in the village like the primary healthcare center. Then the function of panchayats is to maintain a minimum educational level in that particular village like the primary education. So, all these are the functions that have been granted under schedule 11 to the panchayats. So, these are very basic minimum functions which the panchayats are expected to fulfill. After that, Article 243H the Article 243H talks about the finances. Article 243 talks about the finances. That means the power of panchayats to impose taxes or to collect funds. That means now that this is a different tier of administration, just like the central government imposes various taxes so that it can earn, then it can spend, the state government also imposes various taxes. The panchayats also have the right to impose certain taxes or fee or fine so that they can carry on the administration in a village. So, all these powers have been granted to the panchayats under Article 243H of the Constitution, and they can collect their own funds also. So, they can maintain a fund. For example, they can maintain a fund for cleanliness of the village, for healthcare facilities in the village, for educational facilities in the village, etc. Article 243I talks about the Finance Commission of State. The Finance Commission of State. So, just like there is a Finance Commission of India that recommends the distribution of revenue between center and states, similarly there is a Finance Commission of every state which recommends the total amount to be granted to the panchayats and municipalities in that particular state. So, there is a particular sum out of the total collected funds of the state government which have to be mandatorily given to the panchayats and municipalities in the state, and that is recommended by the Finance Commission. This Finance Commission is constituted by the governor of that particular state, and then this commission submits its recommendation to the state legislature, and based on those recommendations the state government for the next 5 years grants a particular sum every year out of the state budget for the development of panchayats and municipalities in the state. Article 243J talks about the audit of accounts of the panchayats. Now, that means that the panchayats cannot simply be given a carte blanche that they can just spend anywhere and they can earn from anywhere. There is audit of accounts of those panchayats, and how this audit is to be done is to be decided by the state legislature. Now, one thing is very important. There is an office of Controller and Auditor General. Controller and Auditor General is not concerned with auditing the accounts of panchayats. Controller and Auditor General is only concerned with auditing the accounts of the central government and the state governments, but it is not concerned with auditing the accounts of panchayats as well. So, how these accounts are to be audited, that has to be decided by the state legislature. Now, the state will decide how this audit will be undertaken. In this context, there is also a term which is known as social audit. So, can you tell me in the comment section what is a social audit? In one line, if you can tell me what is a social audit. So, a social audit simply means that where anyone can audit the accounts of panchayats, means the society can audit the accounts of panchayats. Not exactly expenditure on social welfare schemes. Social audit means where the society can audit the accounts of panchayats. Now what it means is, say there is a meeting of gram panchayat going on, audit done by selected members of the people. Yes, of course, this is social audit. So say there is a meeting of gram sabha. Now gram sabha and gram panchayat, there is a difference. So gram sabha is the entire electorate of the village, whereas gram panchayat is the elected body of that particular village. So say there is a meeting of gram sabha going on, which is presided over by the gram panchayat. So any member out of the gram sabha, that means any adult member of that particular village, can ask for the accounts of that particular panchayat. Say a member stood up and he says that I want to know that where that particular sum of money was spent. So can you tell me? Then the sarpanch or the panches will have to tell those members, and they also have to show the documents pertaining to that particular expenditure or income. So this is social audit. That means if any person asks for such information, it cannot be denied by the gram panchayat, provided that person has a stake in that particular village. That person should be a member of gram sabha, and just anyone cannot ask for it. A member of gram sabha can ask for clearance over the expenditure and revenue of that particular panchayat. This is social audit. Then there is 243K. So under Article 243K of the Constitution, there is a provision for the State Election Commission. Again, a very important body, State Election Commission. So there is an Election Commission of India which conducts the elections, which conducts 6 types of elections. Election Commission of India conducts the elections for both the houses of parliament, for both the houses of state legislature, and for the offices of the President and Vice President of India. So these are the 6 elections which are conducted by the Election Commission of India. However, for the elections of panchayats and municipalities, every state has a State Election Commission that is provided under Article 243K of the Constitution. The manner, the selection, and each and every procedure regarding the State Election Commission is to be decided by that state particular concerned. Then there is Article 243L. Now this is an important article. As per this article, the application of 73rd Amendment to UTs, the application of this particular amendment to union territories is to be defined. Now what it means is that all the villages in all the states are covered, but there are villages in union territories as well. For example, in Chandigarh also there are various villages. Chandigarh is not only a city, it is a union territory also, but in this union territory there are various villages on the periphery of Chandigarh which are a part of the union territory of Chandigarh. So does this particular amendment, the 73rd Amendment, extend to the rural areas in UTs as well or not? That is what we are going to discuss. Is it mandatory to give the fixed grants by the Finance Commission of a state? It is not mandatory. The Finance Commission is just a recommendatory body. So say the Finance Commission recommends to the state that you please give 10% of your total tax receipts to the panchayats of your state. The government may or may not accept the recommendations of the Finance Commission. So it is just a recommendation. The government may not accept the recommendations, and there is no particular grant or particular fixed sum that is to be granted to the panchayats. It totally depends on the whims and wishes of the state government concerned. So no fixed sum or fixed grant is there. So their application to UTs is not automatic. It has to be directed by the President of India. It has to be directed by the President of India. The reason for that is that the union territories come under the direct control of the President of India or the central government. That means any village that is falling under the union territory, if this particular amendment is to be extended to that village, it needs the consent of the President of India. Also, the President may apply 73rd Amendment to such a village with or without modifications. So all the provisions that we have done, it is not mandatory that all these provisions shall be applied to a village in a union territory. This amendment can be applied to a union territory with modifications also. For example, take an example of any village in Chandigarh, since we are most of us are in or around this particular city. So, say there are so many villages in Chandigarh, there is Hallo Majra, then there are some other villages also which are on the periphery of Chandigarh. So, these villages come under the Union Territory of Chandigarh. That means the 73rd Amendment need not necessarily apply to those villages, because they are not under any state government. And since Chandigarh directly is administered by the President of India, that means these 73rd Amendment provisions, that all that we have discussed, it can be the three-tier system, it can be the reservation, it can be the financial devolution, State Finance Commission or State Election Commission. All these provisions may or may not be exactly implemented in the villages of Chandigarh, and if they are to be implemented, they need the permission of the President of India for that particular purpose. Now, we will not be doing specific provisions, because for every state and for every UT there are various variations. We just need to know the common provisions of the 73rd Amendment Act. Then Article 243M of the Constitution. Article 243M talks about the exempted areas. So, Article 243 talks about those areas, the exempted states and the exempted areas. That means there are various states in India and there are various areas in India where 73rd Amendment does not apply, which are mentioned under Article 243M of the Constitution. Those states are the state of Nagaland. Number 1 is the state of Nagaland. Then there are the states of Meghalaya and Mizoram. In these particular states, the 73rd Amendment does not apply. The reason for that is that in these particular states, 2 of these states are under Schedule 6 of the Constitution. However, those are separate topics, but the entire states have been kept out of the purview of 73rd Amendment, because these are 3 such states which have the highest tribal population in India. Therefore, the 73rd Amendment is not applied here, and there is a separate set of laws for these 3 states that we will discuss in a short moment. Earlier, the state of Jammu and Kashmir was also one of those states where this amendment was not applicable, but now it is no longer a state. Therefore, Jammu and Kashmir, in Jammu and Kashmir now the 73rd Amendment is applicable. So, this was a statement made by the Union Home Minister Amit Shah in the Parliament that see, 73rd Amendment is not applicable in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. That is why there are irregular elections, that is why there is no financial devolution, that is why there is no development in the villages of that particular state. So, all these reasons were given by the Union Home Minister, but now that Jammu and Kashmir is no longer a state, it is a union territory. That means the President by an order can extend 73rd Amendment to the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir, and that he has already done. Then there are various areas where 73rd Amendment does not apply. First are the Schedule 5 areas. So, in Schedule 5 that talks about the scheduled and tribal areas, there are various areas in 9 states of India where 73rd Amendment does not apply, where there is tribal population, and the government has specifically carved out different type of administrative mechanism for those tribes to govern themselves. Then there are Schedule 6 areas. So, the Schedule 6 areas are in 4 particular states, that is the state of Assam, Tripura, Meghalaya and Mizoram. Now, these 2 states have already been totally exempted, therefore, their Schedule 6 areas have automatically been exempted, but these are Schedule 6 areas where the 73rd Amendment does not apply. Then there is the hill area of Manipur, where 73rd Amendment does not apply, and the reason for that is that there is a separate district council that exists there. There is a separate district council for the hill area of Manipur. Now, this area again is ethnically as well as you can say culturally a very different area. That is why they do not accept 73rd amendment to be applied on them. So, they have a separate mechanism known as a district council, which is applied to them. Then there is the Darjeeling area of West Bengal. So, in this particular area a Gorkha Hill Council exists. Gorkha Hill Council exists. So, again there is an issue, the Gorkhas have been demanding a separate state called Gorkhaland out of the state of West Bengal, but instead of granting them a separate state, the government of India has granted them autonomy within the state of West Bengal by making a Gorkha Hill Council. Now, this is that type of body where no reservation is applied, where all these provisions that we have done till now, they can be modified. So, in this Gorkha Hill Council, Gorkhas can be the only members and chairpersons of the Gorkha Hill Council. That means we have tried to create a variation where we have not provided any reservation to scheduled caste, scheduled tribe or women, and we have also done away with many other standard features of 73rd amendment. So, this has been done to placate the demands of Gorkhas in the particular area. That is why here also 73rd amendment does not apply. Now, there is an exception, and that exception is the scheduled 5 areas. So, in scheduled 5 areas, what the government can do is the government can pass an act to include these areas in the 73rd amendment. So, the government can pass a separate law, and if the government thinks that at some point of time the 73rd amendment now should be applied to this particular areas, then the government can do that, and the government has done that by passing the Panchayats Extension to Scheduled Areas Act or the PESA Act. So, the government has actually passed this particular law known as the Panchayats Extension to Scheduled Areas Act 1996. That means now this area is no longer exempted. So, in schedule 5 areas the panchayats are extended, because schedule 6 areas are more autonomous, therefore, to apply panchayats to that particular area is very difficult, but schedule 5 areas do not have that level of autonomy. So, it was expected since the very beginning that at some point in time, after a few years, a time will come when schedule 5 areas can have 73rd amendment features in entirety. And see, in 1993 this amendment was passed and implemented. Just 3 years after that, panchayats were extended to the scheduled areas under schedule 5 of the constitution. You should be very careful that panchayats have been extended only to schedule 5 areas and not to schedule 6 areas. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Yes, the government can do that for schedule 6 as well, of course. It is government's wish. Government can exclude anything, government can include anything. Government just has to amend article 243M of the constitution. Government can even exclude Gorkha Hill Council or hill area of Manipur as well. They can also come under the purview of the 73rd amendment. That is for the government to decide, but until now government has done this only for schedule 5 areas. Then there is article 243N of the constitution. Article 243N talks about the continuance of existing laws and panchayats. It talks about the continuance of existing laws and panchayats. That means when this particular amendment is passed in the year 1992 and implemented in the year 1993, there were existing Panchayati Raj laws in every state already. So, what would happen to those laws? Will this particular amendment supersede all those laws, or will those laws continue? So, of course, now the answer is that all those laws come here, but the constitution is here. That means the constitution is supreme to all those laws. So, all those state laws which were already there in operation, they have to go. So, this provision stated that all other existing laws which are there in the different states, they shall continue until maximum 1 year, maximum 1 year from the implementation of 73rd Amendment. So, they have to modify their laws in accordance with 73rd Amendment of a maximum 1 year within the implementation of this particular law. And if the panchayats are already going on under the previous laws, they shall also continue till their term expires. The panchayats that are continuing, they shall continue till their term expires. For example, the amendment was implemented in 1993. Say there is a panchayat which was elected in 1991 under a previous law. Now that panchayat should continue till the year 1996 because of its 5-year tenure. However, such a panchayat can be dissolved also. So it depends upon the state. A state can continue the already elected panchayats until they complete their 5 years, or the state can straight away dissolve those panchayats and can constitute fresh elections as per the 73rd Amendment Act as well. But as a matter of fact, most of the states did dissolve their panchayats and they conducted fresh elections as per the provisions of 73rd Amendment. For example, they applied the provisions of State Finance Commission, State Election Commission. They also applied the reservation criteria. So they also applied the 3-tier system. So there was a uniformity after this 73rd Amendment Act was passed. Before this particular amendment, there was no uniformity whatsoever in the entire India. The last article, which is Article 243O, talks about the bar on interference by courts. The bar on interference by the courts. It means that the courts will not interfere in the matters of panchayats, in the electoral matters of panchayats. Number 1. So the courts will not interfere in the electoral matters of panchayats. So the courts have been expressly barred. Number 2, the courts will not interfere in the delimitation of constituencies of panchayats. For example, if this is a village, if this is a particular village, and in this particular village 4 constituencies have been formed like this. So this is constituency number 1, 2, 3 and 4. No one can challenge how this boundary was drawn. So this thing cannot be challenged in a court of law. No one can say that instead of this line, it should have been drawn here. No one can say that. So this is a discretion of the state government and it cannot be challenged before any court. Similarly, no one can challenge the allotment of seats. This again is the discretion of the state government. No one can say that a panchayat should have 5 members and not 3 members, or it should have 3 members and not 5 members. This again is the discretion of the state government. So these matters cannot be challenged in courts, and the courts have been expressly barred for interfering in these particular matters because these are trivial matters, and if these matters are taken up before the court, they will delay the process of elections of panchayats, and they can also be used by many as vendetta politics to stall the elections of panchayats. That is why the courts have been expressly barred from interfering in these matters. Now in the end, let us see 2 sets of provisions. Some provisions are compulsory in nature. Some provisions are compulsory in nature, while some provisions are voluntary in nature. What it means is that the Constitution of India under the 73rd Amendment gives 2 types of provisions. Some provisions are compulsory for every state to implement, whereas some provisions are voluntary in nature. So the implementation of voluntary provisions depends on the will and power of the state concerned, whereas these provisions are mandatory for every state to implement. Now, let us see the breakup of these provisions, which we have already done, but for more clarity, let us see that. The first provision is the organization of Gram Sabha. That means Gram Sabha is mandatory. There is no variation in this particular provision. Every state, while forming their Panchayati Raj bodies, is mandatorily asked to form the Gram Sabhas in all its villages. The second provision is panchayats at all three levels. Now, this is also a mandatory provision. The only exception is for a state having less than 20 lakh population. For a state having less than 20 lakh population, in that case the panchayat should be at two levels and the intermediate level panchayat can be done away with. The third important provision is direct election of members. Direct election of members at all the three levels, whereas there should be indirect election of chairpersons at the second and third level. Because as we discussed, the chairperson at the first level, that is the Gram Panchayat, how that chairperson will be elected is to be decided by the state government. Now, there can be two provisions. Say there are 5-member panchayat in a village. There is a 5-member panchayat in a village. There can be two types of provisions. According to one provision, the people will elect all the 4 panches as well as the sarpanch. This can be one provision, that all these 5 people will be directly voted by the people. The another provision can be that these 4 panches will be elected by the people and these 4 panches then will elect one sarpanch. So, then that becomes a indirect election. So, whether it will be direct election of panchayat of the sarpanch or the indirect election of sarpanch is to be decided by the state concerned. So, this is a mandatory provision. Minimum age shall be 21 years. This also is a mandatory provision. So, no state can make any variation to this particular age to the disadvantage of any person. So, this age cannot be reduced to 18, it cannot also be increased to any other number. So, this is also a mandatory provision which every state has to implement. Then the reservation provisions are also mandatory. A reservation as far as SC, ST and women are concerned. So, as we discussed, for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, reservation has to be provided in proportion to their population, and for women at least 1/3 reservation has to be provided. Then the tenure has to be fixed at 5 years. There cannot be any variation in this particular provision. This was the most misused provision. So, no one can have say panchayat for 6 years or for 10 years or for 2 years or 3 years. No, 5 years is the standard duration or tenure of a panchayat throughout India. Then there are 2 constitutional bodies, that is the State Finance Commission, and the State Election Commission. So, there cannot be any variation as far as these 2 bodies are concerned. Every state is mandated to form State Finance Commission and the State Election Commission as well. So, all the states irrespective of any other provision have to implement all these provisions which are mandatory in nature. Now, there are certain voluntary provisions which have been left to the states. If they want to do that, they can do that. If they do not want to do that, even that it is fine. So, these are voluntary provisions. The first provision is, if the state wants to give representation to members of parliament or to the members of legislative assembly in any of these three bodies, then they can do so at their discretion. For example, there is Gram Panchayat, then there is Block Samiti, and then there is Zilla Parishad. These are the three bodies under the Panchayati Raj institutions. So in these three bodies, since they are talking about the grassroots level issues, but if they want to include members of parliament from that particular constituency or the members of legislative assembly from those particular constituencies, they can be included in the meetings of, say, Zilla Parishad or in the Block Samiti for the purpose of integrated action plan. For example, if a village wants a particular policy that, say, a particular railway line is going to pass through that particular village, but the village is opposing the passage of that railway line from that village's boundary, but railways comes under the ambit of the union government under the union list in Schedule 7 of the Constitution. Now, to put forth their point to the member of parliament, the member of parliament from that particular constituency can be invited to take part in the meeting of that Zilla Parishad or that Gram Panchayat or that Block Samiti, so that that MP can take their grievance to the Parliament of India. Similarly, if there is any subject which is under the jurisdiction of the state government under Schedule 7 of the Constitution, and the villagers want to put forth their point to the Chief Minister of the state or to the state government, they can invite the member of that legislative assembly from their constituency to take part in that meeting. So in that way, an integrated plan including all the central government, state government and the local government subjects can be taken at a common meeting. This provision can be, not mandatorily, it can be provided by the state government concerned. Then we talked about reservation for SC, STs and women. Now this is mandatory in nature, but the reservation to the other backward classes is not mandatory in nature. So it depends on the discretion of the state government if they want to provide this reservation or not. Number 3 is the devolution of powers. The devolution of powers. Nowhere in the Constitution it is mentioned that a particular set of powers has to be granted to the panchayats or Panchayati Raj institutions. It totally depends on the will of the state government concerned. What is the maximum age to become a sarpanch? There is no maximum age to become a sarpanch. There is no upper age limit as such. There is only the lower age limit for becoming a sarpanch, which is 21. Then there are financial powers. Again, there is nothing in the Constitution is it written that a particular finance has to be provided or particular finances have to be allocated to the Gram Panchayats or to the Panchayati Raj bodies. This again, these 2 points again totally depend on the will of the state government concerned. Now these are the 2 points which are criticized the most when it comes to the Panchayati Raj institutions, because these 2 points decide how powerful and how effective the panchayats will be in a particular state. So in some states the panchayats are very powerful, where they have been given a lot of powers and where they have their own finances as well. But in various other states the panchayats are very weak because the state governments have not granted any significant powers or taxes or finances to that particular panchayat. So this in totality is 73rd constitutional amendment. If you have any question, you can ask that question to me. Then we will begin with the 74th Amendment Act. If you have any doubt, you can ask me about the 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act, and then we will proceed with the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Yes. So no questions you have on 73rd Constitutional Amendment Act? Article 243J you want me to repeat. So, Article 243J talks about the audit of accounts. Article 243J talks about the audit of accounts. Audit simply means the examination of expenditures and receipts of the panchayats. So, Article 243J provides provisions where the accounts of panchayat can be audited. So, there is a particular source of income for the panchayats, and the panchayats also spend on various topics, but this can be audited by any manner and any agency as the state government will provide. And we also talked about social audit. Social audit means that any member of the Gram Sabha can just stand up in the meeting of Gram Sabha and can ask for the examination of accounts of the panchayat. So, this is social audit. SCs and STs reservation. No, the reservation for scheduled castes and scheduled tribes cannot be reduced. See, it totally depends on their proportion in the population of that particular village. Say if there are no scheduled castes or scheduled tribes in a village, they will not be provided any reservation in the panchayat of that village. However, if there are 90% scheduled castes in a village, then 90% of the seats of that particular legislative of that particular panchayat have to be reserved for that particular community, that is the scheduled castes. So, it cannot be reduced if the population is more. What are cantonment areas? We will talk about cantonment areas under the 74th Amendment. Cantonment areas are basically the military areas which are under the cantonment board. So, we will talk about that in the urban local bodies. This in totality was the rural local bodies or the rural local self government. Now, let us discuss the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. Minimum age for chairperson of these bodies. There is no separate minimum age for chairperson, that again is 21 years of age. So, whether it is the membership of all the three levels of these bodies or the chairmanship of these three levels of bodies, the 21 years is the minimum age. There is no separate age limit either upper or for any other body, that is 21 years uniform. So, under the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, Part 9A was added to the Constitution, that included Articles 243P to 243ZG of the Constitution. No, the provision for OBC is different and the provision for SC/ST is different. It is mandatory for the state to provide reservation for SC/ST, but it is not mandatory to provide reservation to OBCs. So, the OBC reservation is optional, but the reservation for SC and ST is mandatory in nature. So, this is the provision that is there. So, Articles 243 to Article 243ZG, Part 9A of the Constitution, it also added Schedule 12 to the Constitution, that includes 18 subjects on which the urban local bodies shall make laws, on which the urban local bodies shall make provisions. So, 74th Amendment Act again was passed in the year 1992 and implemented in the year 1993, and Part 9A was added to the Constitution by virtue of the 74th Amendment. Let us discuss some important provisions of 74th Amendment Act. Under this also there is a three-tier system. Now, this three-tier system here means that there shall be three types of urban areas. There are certain urban areas which are transitional in nature, Now, transitional in nature means that they were earlier villages or they were earlier rural areas, but now they are transforming into urban areas. So, they are transitioning from rural to urban areas, and for this type of areas there is an urban local body which is known as a Nagar Panchayat. So, it is known as a Nagar Panchayat. Then there are small towns or small urban areas for which there are specific types of bodies which are known as municipal councils. The word council is very important here, which is also known as municipal board or municipality. So, all these are the terms that are used interchangeably for a small town body. So, this is the intermediate level body, and at the third level is a body for larger cities that have a population above a particular threshold, which is again decided by the state government. So, for large cities there is municipal corporation. For large cities there is municipal corporation. These are the three types of bodies under 74th Amendment. So, for those areas which have just been transformed from a village to an urban area, there is a Nagar Panchayat. For small areas there is municipality or municipal council or municipal board, and for large cities there is municipal corporation. Then as far as the composition of these bodies is concerned, the composition of these bodies is concerned, number one, all the members of these bodies are directly elected. So, there is direct election of members. Can you tell me in the comment section what the members of these bodies are known as? What are the members of municipal corporation or municipal council known as? Can you tell me in the comment section? I expect some of you will be living in urban areas. There will be a municipal body in your particular city. It could be municipal council or municipal corporation. So, what are the elected members of these particular bodies known as? Yes. Yes, the municipal councillor. The municipal councillor. There is a difference between this councillor, CILLOR, and there is a difference between this councillor. So, this councillor simply means advisor, anyone who can counsel, but this councillor has been formed from the word council. That means those members who are those people who are members of a particular council. Here it means municipal council, only those are the municipal councillors. So, they are, in short, they are known as MCs. So, they are the directly elected members of the municipal bodies. Similarly, the municipal area is divided into various constituencies which are known as wards. So, wards are there in the cities and they are directly elected. Yes. So, there are wards in municipal areas and the members are directly elected. As far as the election of their chairperson is concerned, the election of their chairperson is concerned, it is decided by the state. Usually, the chairman of a municipal corporation is known as mayor. The chairman of a municipal corporation is known as a mayor, but how the mayor is to be decided, the mayor is to be appointed is decided by the state legislature. So, the state government may make a provision that a mayor has to be directly elected or it can be appointed also. So, it totally depends on the wishes of the state government how it wants to elect that particular mayor. So, this again is a state subject under Schedule 7 of the Constitution, the urban local self government. So, therefore, all these provisions are to be decided by the state government only. Another provision is that the state government may or can provide representation of. So, in these particular houses, the representation to various people can be provided. For example, MLAs or MPs, just like we did in the voluntary provisions under 73rd Amendment, MLAs or MPs from that particular area can be granted representation in the municipal bodies. Similarly, if there are any experts in municipal administration, they can also be granted special representation in the house. So, this representation can be provided to these members in the municipal bodies. After that, there are certain wards committees. There is a provision for wards committees. Now, these wards committees, so there are various constituencies in a city which are known as wards, and wards committees consist of one or more wards, and they should have a population of more than 3 lakh. So, 3 lakh or more population if there is in a municipality, if the municipality has a population of 3 lakh or more, then there can be wards committees in that particular municipality, and a ward committee consists of 2 or more wards. So, it is just like a cabinet committee, or you can say it is just like a parliamentary committee, where 2 or more than 2 municipal councillors, they become a committee, and that is to solve a particular issue or a particular problem. So, these are wards committees. The provision for reservation of seats, the provision for reservation of seats in the urban local bodies is the same as that of under the 73rd Constitutional Amendment. So, as far as the reservation to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe is concerned, it should be according to their population. As far as the reservation to women is concerned, it is 1/3, and as far as reservation to OBCs is concerned, it is to be decided by the state. So, again there is a discretion for providing reservation to the members of other backward classes. Their duration again is 5 years, which is the same as that of the 73rd Amendment bodies, and their application to UTs again is governed by the President of India. Now, what it means is, let us take a practical example. For example, application to UTs is to be directed by the President of India. Now, let us take the example of Chandigarh. Now, Chandigarh has a municipal body. Can you tell me in the comment section what is the name of the municipal body that is there in Chandigarh? It's a very easy question, but you should have known by now that there are 3 levels of bodies for municipality, and which municipal body is there for the city or union territory of Chandigarh. Can you tell me in the comment section? Yes. So, the municipal body in Chandigarh is the Chandigarh Municipal Corporation. Since Chandigarh is a large city, it has a municipal corporation which is there for larger cities. Now, this is a body, municipal corporation, yes, as rightly said by Priya, there is municipal corporation for Chandigarh. Now, this particular body is in a UT. Therefore, that means this body is not established under the 74th Constitutional Amendment. It has been extended here by a specific order of the President of India. So, all other states like Punjab and Haryana, say in Punjab there are more than 14-15 municipal corporations. For the district of Patiala, Ludhiana, Jalandhar, Amritsar, Mohali, there are municipal corporations because these are big cities. So, all those corporations are by virtue of 74th Constitutional Amendment. whereas the Municipal Corporation of Chandigarh is not by virtue of 74th Amendment, it is by virtue of the extension of that amendment to this particular UT. That is the difference. That means it totally depends on the wish of the President of India whether 74th Amendment is to be extended to the UTs or not. And in accordance with this, the President gave his assent, and that is how Chandigarh Municipal Corporation was formed. This is a point that you have to remember. If we talk about the exempted areas where the 74th Amendment is not applicable, there are certain areas where the 74th Amendment is not applicable, just like we did in the case of 73rd Amendment. So, the 74th Amendment is not applicable in the Schedule 5 areas. It is also not applicable in the Schedule 6 areas. So, in both these areas, the 74th Constitutional Amendment does not apply, and also it is not applicable in the Darjeeling Gorkha Hill Council. So, in the Darjeeling area of West Bengal, the Gorkha Hill Council is there. That means, now what it means is, we also discussed the Gorkha Hill Council under the 73rd Amendment. That means the Gorkha Hill Council governs both the rural as well as urban areas of this particular area. Yes, the municipal corporations of the union territories are directly administered by the union government. Yes, you are right. So, the Chandigarh Municipal Corporation does not come either under the Punjab government or under the Haryana government, but it directly is administered by the union government. Yes, you are right. Then there is a provision for district planning committee. There is a provision for a district planning committee and a metropolitan planning committee. Let us understand what these committees are. So, there is a district planning committee and then there is a metropolitan planning committee. Now that we have done all the three bodies of the 73rd Amendment Act, that is the Panchayati Raj institutions, and we have also done all the three bodies of the urban local bodies, that is under the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. So, when all these bodies combine at the district level, this is another important point, that district is the basic unit of administration in India. So, this is a very important thing you should remember. You can be asked this question as an MCQ, that which among the following is the basic unit of administration in India. So, the basic unit of administration in India is district. You can be given the options like a city or a village or say a block or a tehsil, but you should know that district is the basic unit of administration in India. Now, what we have tried to do here is, under both these 73rd and 74th Amendments, their bodies, they culminate at the district level. For example, under the Panchayati Raj institutions, there are villages, then there are blocks, but ultimately there is a district level panchayat, that is known as the Zilla Parishad. So, district is the culminating body. Similarly, here also there are municipal corporations, which is the culminating body at the district level. That means both the rural as well as urban administrations have their manifestation at the district level. But at the district level, these are two parallel bodies. This body is looking at the rural areas and this body is looking at the urban areas. There needs to be synchronization as far as planning is concerned. To synchronize the planning between rural and urban areas, there are district planning committees in every district. For example, if the state government has to allocate some funds for the implementation of a scheme, they will not see that how much funds are to be given to the rural bodies and how much of the funds are to be given to the urban bodies. They will simply send those funds to the district planning committees. Now, every district planning committee will have to see the proportion of villages and cities in that particular district. It might be the case that in one particular district, 90% of the area is rural area and only 10% of the area is the urban area. Whereas in another district, say 90% of the area is actually urban area and there is only 10% of area that consists of villages. So, in that case, the allocation to rural and urban areas has to be on a case by case basis and no uniform methodology can be drawn out. Therefore, every district planning committee will have to see how much of the funds have to be allocated to rural area and how much of the funds have to be allocated to the urban area. Therefore, district planning committee simply means for a consolidated planning at the district level, where both the rural as well as urban areas are combined. So, this is where the grants come and then they are further allocated to the urban local bodies and to the rural local bodies. And the composition of this particular district planning committee, that 4/5 of its members are elected. 4/5 of the members of the district planning committee are elected by the elected members of district panchayat and municipalities, elected by the elected members of district panchayats, that is the Zilla Parishad, and the municipal bodies. Therefore, the elected members of all these three bodies of the district Zilla Parishad and of all these three bodies, they elect 4/5 of the members of the district planning committee. As far as the metropolitan planning committee is concerned, now metropolitan by definition means those areas which are more urban in nature, which are more populated as well as which have more urban population. So, in this particular body the only difference is that 2/3 of its members are elected and not 4/5. This is the only major difference. So, in case of metropolitan planning committee, 2/3 of the total members and chairpersons of the and the chairpersons have to be elected by the elected members of panchayats and municipalities in that particular district. So, this is the major difference. So, the only purpose of district planning committee and metropolitan planning committee is to consolidate the plans of the rural as well as urban local bodies. Then there are subjects which are mentioned under schedule 12 of the Indian Constitution. There are 18 subjects of the urban local governments. For example, the maintenance of parks, community centers. Similarly, there are the provisions of urban roads. So, the small urban roads are to be maintained by the municipal bodies. Similarly, there is firefighting services, then the maintenance of crematoriums and cemeteries is to be done by the municipal administration. The issue of birth and death certificates is also to be done by the municipal administration. There are various other functions that are performed by the municipal administration, including garbage collection and management. They also have to be concerned with the basic education level and basic health facilities in their particular areas, including the dispensaries and the minimum basic health services and education services in that particular city. So, these are some of the important functions out of these 18 subjects that are mentioned for the 74th Amendment bodies. So, until now we have discussed the 74th Constitutional Amendment and their features. There are certain special types of bodies which are there under the 74th Amendment. We have already done the municipal corporation and the municipal council. So, the municipal corporation is for the larger cities, whereas the municipal council is for the smaller cities. But there are various other types of bodies under the 74th constitutional amendment. Now, the reason for that is that the cities are not of a uniform type. This is only on the basis of the population of that particular city, but it can be so that a city is of a very different nature. So, there can be a different type of body for that city. Let us see some examples. The first example is that of a notified area committee. Now, what is a notified area committee? First of all, let us see what is a notified area committee. It is notified in the Gazette. That means if it is notified in the Gazette, that means no law is passed. So, it is a non-statutory body. So, it is a non-statutory body. It is notified in the government Gazette and it is a non-statutory body. Then it is an entirely nominated body. Entirely nominated body. So, it is notified in the Gazette and it is nominated. That means it is not an elected body. Now, you must be wondering that where can we see the notified area committee, or why a notified area committee is formed in the first place? Why not form a municipal corporation or a municipal council? Now, there are two types of areas for which a notified area committee is formed. The first type are the industrialized towns. The industrialized towns which are developing very fast. For example, if in a particular rural area or in the outskirts of a particular city, a new city is coming up around a very large industry. Say there is a steel plant on the outskirts of a urban area, and there a very large township is coming up. So, to govern that township, that area will be notified by the state government and an entirely nominated body will be put in place. Now, this has been done to reduce the hassles of conducting an election, since it is a very small area as compared to a city, but it still needs something to govern itself. It still needs the basic sewage facilities, the basic water supply, the basic community health centers, the roads, the street lighting. So, for all that, this body is there which is entirely nominated, so that the State Election Commission does not have to bother itself with the conducting of elections. That is why this body is notified. So, it is for those towns which are industrialized towns and which are growing very fast. Secondly, it is for those towns which do not fulfill the criteria for municipal corporation or a municipal council also. For example, let us take a hypothetical example. Say a particular state has kept the criteria that every city who will have a population of more than 5 lakh will be given the tag of a municipal corporation, and every city that has a population of more than 1 lakh will be given the tag of a municipal council. So, what will happen to a city that has the population of 90,000, or what will happen to a city that has a population of 50,000? So, you may say that such a city can be granted the status of a Nagar Panchayat, which is the third level of the municipal administration. However, there is a particular definition for that city. It has to be a transitional area. What if it is not a transitional area, but it still falls under the urban area? So, it does fulfill some of the eligibilities of these two, but it does not fulfill the population based criteria of the municipal corporation or municipal council. That is why it has to be notified as a area committee. So, it becomes a notified area committee. What is important is that it is notified in the Gazette. That means no act or statute is passed for establishment of such a body, and it is an entirely nominated body. So, none of the members is elected to this body. Another such body is the town area committee. Another such body is the town area committee. So, this is the fifth such body. The first body was municipal corporation, second was municipal council, third was the Nagar Panchayat, fourth was the notified area committee, and fifth is the town area committee. Now, this town area committee is again for a very small town, a very small town. The difference between notified area committee and town area committee is that this particular town area committee is constituted by an act of the state legislature. That means it is a statutory body. So, if a particular small town has to be made a town area committee, then a separate act has to be passed by the particular state legislature for that particular body. In this particular body, there can be any variation. It can be elected, nominated, or either or both. So, there is a complete independence, or there is complete autonomy as far as the manner of election and the manner of composition of the council has to be done. So, there is a complete autonomy, and this particular thing has to be decided in that particular act. So, that if the government wants to make this body a fully elected body, it can do so. If it wants to make it a fully nominated body, it also can do so. So, there are 5 types of bodies that we have discussed till now. First is the municipal corporation for larger cities, second is the municipal council for smaller towns, third is the Nagar Panchayat for transitional areas, fourth was the notified area committee, which is notified in the gazette and it is entirely nominated, fifth is the town area committee, which is for a small town and it is formed by an act of parliament. That means it is a statutory body, and it can be either fully elected or fully nominated, or it can be either elected or nominated, or it can be both also. So, there is complete leverage that is given to the state legislatures how it wants to keep this particular body. After that, the sixth body is the cantonment board. Sixth body is the cantonment board. Now, cantonment board simply means that it is an army area. Rather, we would say that it is a military area because it includes army, navy as well as air force. So, it is a military area. Now, we know that military areas are very sophisticated, they are very you can say sensitive areas from the point of view of national security. So, the civil administration of the city cannot be allowed to extend its scope or its jurisdiction into the military area. That is why for these military areas, since they are very large areas and they are somewhat like a cities, therefore, the civil administration of these areas has to be done in a separate manner. For the civil administration of these areas, separate cantonment boards are there. One example of this cantonment board is the Chandi Mandir cantonment board. So, Chandi Mandir is the headquarters of the Western Army Command in the city of Chandigarh, and for the administration of this particular Western Command of Army in Chandi Mandir, there is a separate cantonment board that takes care of that. So, the Chandigarh Municipal Corporation's jurisdiction does not extend to the Chandi Mandir Western Command of the Army. There is a separate cantonment board for that particular body. Now, the major difference between this cantonment board is that it is established by an act of parliament. Now, this is a very important point. This is passed by an act of parliament. That means the state has no say in establishing a cantonment board, and the reason for that is that defense is a union subject. So, defense is a union subject. That is why a state government cannot form a cantonment board. It has to be done by the central government only. That means an act has to be passed in parliament and not in the state legislature. Also, when an act is passed, the cantonment board is established, it is under the Ministry of Defence and not under the Ministry of Local Self Government or Panchayati Raj. In case of all other bodies, they are either under the Ministry of Panchayati Raj or under the Ministry of Urban Local Self Government, but the cantonment board falls under the Ministry of Defence only. This is a major difference. Also, it is administered by the centre and not by the state government. In all other urban local bodies, the administration is in the hands of the state, but in cantonment board, the administration is in the hands of the central government, since it is concerned with the subject of defense. As far as the composition of this body is concerned, it is partly elected and partly nominated. It is partly elected and partly nominated. It also takes care of all those concepts and all those functions which the other municipalities take care of. It takes care of the sewage system, the street lighting and all that. So, it also takes care of all those same systems. The most important point is that the president of a cantonment board, so president means the chief of this cantonment board, is the commanding officer of that particular army. So, that means a civilian cannot be a head of a cantonment board. It is the military officer who is commanding that particular command. He is the ex officio president of the cantonment board. So, the CO or the commanding officer of the military is the ex officio president of the cantonment board. What it simply means is that even the civil administration of the cantonment board is in the hands of military only. Then there is a seventh type of body. There is seventh type of body which is known as township. The seventh type of body is known as a township. Now, this township is for large public sector undertakings. Large public sector undertakings. There can be some really large public sector undertakings. For example, there is Indian Oil Corporation, then there is a very large petroleum refinery can be there, a very large cement factory, that is a public sector undertaking can be there, a very large electricity grid can be there, around which thousands of people have to stay only there itself. So, there can be such townships, and to administer such townships, there is a particular body which is known as a township. So, to administer this particular township, there is a township administrator. There is a township administrator. So, this administrator administers the township and it does not have any elected members. It does not have any elected members. So, this is a very simple and very hassle free type of administration, whereas there is no need for any type of elections or any type of body, and there is one person who administers the entire area. And this administrator is generally the officer of the public sector undertaking itself. What it simply means is that there is a very large PSU and there is a small township in the vicinity of that PSU. So, the administrator will be appointed by the PSU itself, who will administer all these things to provide the civic amenities to the people of that township, and there will be no elected or nominated body for that particular purpose. Then the eighth type of body is a port trust. Now, there are very large ports in the coastal areas of India. In the coastal states of Gujarat, Maharashtra, for example, there is Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust, the JNPT in Mumbai. So, the ports are so large that there are thousands of people living in those port areas, and there is a need for civic administration in those areas as well. So, for that particular purpose, the port trusts are created by an Act of Parliament. Act of Parliament. This again is done because major ports, they come under the union list. So, just like the cantonment boards, the port trusts are also under the jurisdiction of the union government. Therefore, an Act of Parliament establishes the port trusts. It has both elected as well as nominated members, both elected as well as nominated members, and the chairman is an officer of the government. The chairman has to be an official. So, this simply is the port trust, and it administers all the civic amenities for that particular port area. So, these are the 8 types of urban local bodies. So, now you know that there are various different variations in urban areas. It is not simply like a rural area where you can have a panchayat and you can simply have a block samiti and a zilla parishad. So, in urban areas there are a lot of variations, and for every type of variation there is a different type of urban local body. Now, the last type of urban local bodies is the special purpose agency. The special purpose agency. Now, the special purpose agency, as the name suggests, there is a specific purpose that the state government wants to accomplish, and for that it establishes a body. For example, the state government wants to fight with the menace of pollution. So, to fight with the menace of pollution, the state government can establish the pollution control boards for every state. For example, the Punjab Pollution Control Board, the Haryana Pollution Control Board. So, this is a special purpose agency. Similarly, the state wants to do something for housing. Housing boards can be established. The Chandigarh Housing Board, the Punjab Housing Board, these are certain examples. Then for urban development, an authority can be established. For example, the Punjab Urban Development Authority, PUDA, or the Haryana Urban Development Authority. These are the examples of some special purpose agencies. Also, there can be improvement trusts. There can be improvement trusts for demarcation of new colonies in various urban areas, for creation of new parks, for creation of various other new types of urban facilities. These things can be there. Also, there can be transport boards. For example, there is Chandigarh Transport, so CTU, Chandigarh Transport Undertaking. It is an urban local body. So, for transport, there can be bodies. So, these bodies, there is one common feature that they are there to fulfill some special purpose. That is why they are special purpose agency. In all other agencies that we have done till now, one agency is responsible for fulfilling all types of functions. Say there is a municipal corporation, it will take care of pollution also, housing also, it will take care of sewage also, street light, cremation, slaughterhouses, each and everything, firefighting services. So, all these things are taken care of by one body. In special purpose agencies, every agency has one specific function which has to be done for the entire city, and in most of the cases the entire state. Say there is a housing board, so it will only deal with the housing problem of that particular city or state. If there is pollution control board, it will not concern itself with any other thing than pollution. So, these are special purpose agencies, and all of them also fall under the urban local government under the 74th constitutional amendment. So, with this we complete the 74th constitutional amendment as well. If you have any doubts or questions, you can ask me in the comment section. After this, we will start with the topic of union territories, which is a very small topic, and after that we will be complete with all the 3 levels of administration, that is the union, the state and the local government. So, at all the 3 levels we would have done the complete constitutional provisions. So, after we have done union territories, we will be complete with all the 3 levels of administration. If you have any doubt regarding 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment acts, you can ask me in the comment section. Yes, if you have any doubt, you can ask me in the comment section. In case of Delhi, 73rd and 74th constitutional are by the president order. Yes, definitely. In case of union territory, it depends on the president of India how he wants to implement that particular provisions in that particular union territory or not. So, it is not automatically implemented, it totally depends on the wish of the president of India. So, that is there. The chairman of port trust is an official appointed by the government. So, it is totally on the wish of the. Yes, any other question you want to ask? All right. So, now we will proceed with the 8th schedule of the 7th schedule of the Constitution. Yes, it has its legislative assembly also. See, now we are going to discuss the union territories topic. So, we will discuss about the Delhi union territory as well. But to answer your specific question, the Delhi is a special case. So, Delhi is a union territory as well, but it has a legislative assembly also. But it also has municipal bodies, and interestingly, Delhi has 3 municipal bodies. There is South Delhi Municipal Corporation, then there is New Delhi Municipal Corporation, then there is Old Delhi Municipal Corporation. So, there are 3 municipal corporations in Delhi itself. That means that subjects are actually divided. So, the union government has specific subjects, the legislative assembly has particular subjects to take care of, and the municipal administration has some other subjects to take care of, where there is no overlapping as such. Yes, there is some problem as far as coordination is concerned, but the most important point here is that their subjects are divided. For example, if garbage collection is a subject which comes under the purview of the Delhi Municipal Corporation, the Delhi government has nothing to do with it. Similarly, if the maintenance of say the graveyards or the cemeteries or the crematoriums are under the purview of the municipal corporation, the union government or the state government have nothing to do with it. So, the subjects are actually divided, and that is how the decisions are taken. So, there is no such problem of coordination as such, but there can be sometimes a problem of coordination, but the division of subjects is the main point, right. I hope your question has been answered. So, now we will do the provisions for union territories. Now, this is a very small topic. The provision for union territories has been mentioned under part 8 of the Constitution. So, we have done part 5 which deals with the union, and we have also done part 6 of the Constitution that deals with states. After that, there is part 7 that talks about states in schedule B of part 1, right. It talks about the states which were earlier princely states, but they were later subsumed into the various other states. For example, under part 7, some of the princely states that were mentioned include the Patiala and Eastern Punjab States Union, or the princely state of Hyderabad, or the princely state of say Jammu and Kashmir, but later on they became either states or they were subsumed into some other states. So, that is why the part 7 has lost its relevance, and part 7 is no longer there, it has been repealed out of the Constitution. So, now we are doing part 8 which deals with union territories. Union territory simply means that territory that directly comes under the union government. So, it is under the direct control of the center or the central government. It is directly under the control of the center or the union government. So, let us see some of the background of union territories, how the union territories came into being. It is actually a construct of the British era. So, in 1874, the British government constituted some areas as scheduled districts. 1874, scheduled districts were constituted. The purpose of these districts was to keep them directly under the control of the British administration or under the Governor General of India. Later, these provinces were called as the Chief Commissioners' provinces. Later, these provinces were called as the Chief Commissioners' provinces. So, as we had discussed at the time of the formation of Constituent Assembly, there were 4 Chief Commissioners' provinces, that is Ajmer, Balochistan, Coorg and Delhi. These were the 4 Chief Commissioners' provinces. That means they did not come under the governors of British provinces, but they came under the Chief Commissioners directly. So, they were the equivalents of union territories before India gained independence. After India gained independence, all these union territories were placed under. So, after 1947, all these UTs were placed under Part C or Part D under the first schedule of the Constitution. So, they were either placed under Part C or Part D. Later on, they became the union territories. So, in the year 1956, the States Reorganization Act was passed. States Reorganization Act was passed, and this created many union territories. Gradually, many of the union territories became states. So, the states which were earlier union territories include the states of Himachal Pradesh or the states of Arunachal Pradesh, so this is a very good question that you have asked. Why legislative assembly is required for Delhi and Puducherry, since they are union territories and are under direct control of union government? Basically, what we have till now is 2 types of system. Under one system, the union government directly administers the entire union territory, for example, the UT of Chandigarh. Whereas, in states, the union has more or less no say at all. So, these are the 2 extreme models. But there can be a system where the central government wants to have its control over a particular area for some particular reason, but it also knows that the size of the state or the ethnic composition of that particular area is such that it has to be given some representation of its own as well. So, a balance is struck. For example, in the case of Delhi, the reason why it is a union territory is because all the offices of the union executive, the union legislature and the union judiciary are located in Delhi. But the reason why it has been given legislative assembly is that the size of the Delhi is so massive that the union government cannot control it with the help of a municipal corporation. So, its size is so massive, its population is more than 2 crores. So, for that particular population, to maintain that particular population, the union government has allowed legislative assembly for that UT. That is the reason why Delhi is a UT and why it also has a legislative assembly. As far as Puducherry is concerned, the ethnic composition of Puducherry is very different, because Puducherry was a French territory. So, the people of Puducherry have a different type of culture. So, to protect that particular culture, Puducherry has been made a union territory. Also, Puducherry is not a congruous area. It is composed of 4 different territories which are scattered all over the South India. There are 4 areas of Puducherry called the Yanam, Mahe, Karaikal and Puducherry. So, these are the 4 different areas, and all those areas fall under different states. For example, Yanam is in Andhra Pradesh, whereas Puducherry and Karaikal are under the Tamil Nadu, and Mahe is in Kerala. That means, if this particular area was not declared a union territory, they would have been subsumed into their respective states. For example, Yanam would have become a part of Andhra Pradesh and Mahe would have become a part of Kerala. But since it is declared a union territory, their culture is protected and they are allowed to have their unique culture while being geographically present in some other state. Why it has been given a legislative assembly? The reason is that if a union territory is of a very small population, then the central government can govern it. But once the size of that union territory or the population of that union territory grows beyond a certain point, then the central government feels the need to have a separate legislative assembly for that particular UT. We can take a hypothetical example that Chandigarh is a union territory without a legislature. But if over a period of time the population of Chandigarh grows so much that the union government feels that a separate state legislature is required for Chandigarh, but since Chandigarh is a UT because of a dispute between the states of Haryana and Punjab, so it can never, or in the near future it cannot become a state, or it cannot be made a any other it cannot be, its status cannot be changed. That means it has to remain a UT, but its population is so much that it needs to have a legislative assembly. So the union government can pass a legislation and it can make a constitutional amendment, and the Chandigarh will have its own legislative assembly as well. And that is the reason why Jammu and Kashmir has been granted a legislative assembly and Ladakh has not been granted a legislative assembly, because the population of Ladakh is so less that it can be directly administered by the center. But the population of Jammu and Kashmir UT is so huge that although it is made a UT for some other reasons, but it has to administer its own self. That is why it has a legislative assembly. So population here is the key reason why a UT is made into a legislative assembly. So the government is actually trying to create a balance when it creates a legislative assembly in a particular UT. That means it has to remain a UT, but it cannot be granted a full statehood as well. At the same time, the central government is not able to maintain that UT, therefore some level of democratic decentralization has to be granted, and for that purpose the legislative assembly is created. So there are various reasons for creation of a union territory. Just like I told you, there are political reasons. For example, Delhi has been a UT because of the seat of central government is there, and Chandigarh has been a UT because there is a dispute between the states of Punjab and Haryana, so it has to be made a union territory. Then there is a strategic reason for that. There are certain union territories which are strategically very important for India. For example, the union territory of Lakshadweep is in the Arabian Sea, and similarly the union territory of Andaman and Nicobar is there in the Indian Ocean. So the reason these two are very strategically important for India, India has naval bases and India has military stationed at these places, so that the southern part of the Indian Ocean or the southern boundary of India can be protected. So these are strategically important, so the government cannot allow politics to take over the real administration in these areas. That is why they are under the union government rule. Then the culture of certain areas is so distinctive that the government has to take it under its own control. One such union territory is Puducherry. So Puducherry has French culture, and that is why it is under the union government's rule. Similarly, the combined UT of Dadra and Nagar Haveli and Daman and Diu also have very distinctive culture. That is why it has been kept under the union government. So these are the various reasons for which UTs are created. Now let us see some of the provisions regarding the administration of union territories. One thing you need to understand is that there is no uniform formula for union territories in India. It means that every union territory has some or the other unique provisions which are not applicable to any other union territory. So the administration of UTs is not uniform. That means the provision which is there for Chandigarh may not be there for Daman and Diu, and the provision which is there for Lakshadweep may not be there for Andaman and Nicobar. So there are separate sets of provisions for all the union territories. Now the administrator or lieutenant governor is the head of a union territory. These are just two terminologies, there is no major difference between the two. So just like there is a governor for every state, there is a lieutenant governor or an administrator for the union territories, and they work directly under the guidance of the President of India. That means President is the ultimate administrator of the UTs, and they have appointed, he has appointed his agents in the form of administrator or lieutenant governor. Also, the president can appoint any of the governor of an adjoining state as the lieutenant governor or administrator of a UT. For example, the governor of Punjab is the administrator of the UT of Chandigarh. So, the governor of Punjab is the administrator of the UT of Chandigarh. What is important here to understand is that when the same person is acting as the governor of Punjab, then he is bound by the advice of the Council of Ministers of the state of Punjab. But when the same person is acting as the administrator of Chandigarh, then he is not answerable to anyone but the President of India. So, when the same person, in this case Mr. VP Singh Badnor, is the governor of Punjab as well as the administrator of Chandigarh. So, when Mr. VP Singh Badnor is acting as the administrator of Chandigarh in this particular capacity, then he is not bound by the recommendations of the governor of Punjab or any of his ministers. In that context, he is directly answerable to the President of India and no one else. Then, if we talk specifically about the union territories of Puducherry and Delhi, now to answer most of your questions. So, there are 2 union territories, now there are 3 actually, Jammu and Kashmir also, but that we will discuss later. So, for Puducherry and for Delhi, these are the 2 union territories that have legislative assemblies as well. So, Puducherry was made a legislative assembly by the 14th Constitutional Amendment Act. By the 14th Constitutional Amendment Act, and 2 articles, namely 239A and 239B, were added to the Constitution. Delhi was made a legislative assembly by the 69th Constitutional Amendment Act, and Article 239AA was added to the Constitution for the establishment of the Delhi Legislative Assembly. So, this particular decision was taken in the year 1962 and this particular decision was taken in the year 1991. So, these are the 2 UTs that have legislative assemblies. Now, the thing is that although these UTs have legislative assemblies, that does not mean that the parliament cannot legislate on the subjects in the state list for these UTs. Our general understanding is that the parliament can make laws on the union list and the state can make laws on the state list, whereas as far as these 2 UTs are concerned, these 2 UTs can make laws on the subjects in the state list as well as in the concurrent list. But that does not mean that the parliament cannot make a law on the state list. The parliament still can make a law on the state list. As far as Delhi is concerned, there are 3 specific subjects which are there in the state list, but still Delhi cannot make laws on those 3 subjects, and those subjects are land, law and order. So, in law comes the police also. The police, order and land, these are the topics which have been kept out of the ambit of the Delhi Legislative Assembly, and the reason is that the central government does not want any conflict to arise in the same place where the seat of union government is located. So, to avoid any type of a awkward situation in case of a political tussle between the government of Delhi and the government of centre, this provision has been made in the Constitution of India. One interesting provision in case of the UT of Delhi is that the CM of the Delhi is appointed by, now you have to fill this particular blank, who appoints the Chief Minister of Delhi, and you also have to tell me. So, first of all, tell me who appoints the Chief Minister of Delhi. In the comment section, let me know who appoints the Chief Minister of Delhi. Okay, so all of you have answered it wrongly. The Chief Minister of Delhi is appointed by the President of India. Now let us see another point. Who administers oath to the Chief Minister of Delhi? Now answer this question. I am telling you that the Chief Minister of Delhi is appointed under the hand and seal of the President of India. Then who administers oath to the Chief Minister of Delhi? Now this answer is the Lieutenant Governor. So this is a small variation, but it can make a huge difference in a multiple choice question. So now you know that the Chief Minister is appointed, or we can say formally appointed, by the President of India, but he has administered oath by the Lieutenant Governor. Since Lieutenant Governor is an agent of the President, so the President has delegated that power to the Lieutenant Governor of India. So when you are saying Lieutenant Governor appoints CM, what you are saying is, what you practically see, that the Lieutenant Governor is administering oath to the Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, and he would have signed that particular paper. But what you don't know is that theoretically this power is delegated to the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi by the President of India. That means ultimately the President of India is the one who is appointing the Chief Minister of Delhi. And it is so in this case because Delhi is a union territory. So the ultimate authority has to come from the President of India. Right? So if you have any question on union territories, you can ask me. If you have any question regarding the union territories portion, you can ask me in the comment section. So these are the two union territories that we have talked about that have a legislative assembly. There is also the legislative assembly of Jammu and Kashmir, but we do not know yet the exact provisions of that. There is another assembly, there is another UT of Ladakh, but it is a UT without a legislative assembly. So with this we have completed part 8 of the constitution also. So now we are done with part 5, part 6 and part 8. That means all the three provisions, all the three tiers of administration are done. Why is there some problem between Lieutenant Governor and CM? So this is a good question that you have asked. So now there are two offices in Delhi. One is of the Lieutenant Governor and one is of the Chief Minister of State. Now the thing is, it's a UT with assembly, so it is administered by the President, and the President has Lieutenant Governor as his agent to take care of the Union Territory of Delhi. On the other hand, there is an elected representative known as the Chief Minister of Delhi. So there is bound to be a conflict between the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi and the Chief Minister of Delhi. So in this particular case, there was a controversy last year when every decision taken by the Chief Minister of Delhi was being scuttled by the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi. Therefore, the Chief Minister filed a case in the Supreme Court of India to decide that who has primacy as far as the administration of Delhi is concerned. And the Supreme Court came out with a verdict that since the Chief Minister is a directly elected representative, therefore he has primacy as compared to the Lieutenant Governor of Delhi. But if there are certain matters which are under the purview of the center list, or if the Lieutenant Governor thinks that a particular bill has been passed or a particular decision has been taken by the CM of Delhi that actually should be reviewed by the President of India, then the Lieutenant Governor can reserve that particular decision for the consideration of the President. In that case, the CM does not have any power. So it was a partial decision which actually acknowledged the primacy of the Chief Minister of Delhi in taking decisions, but it also said that the Lieutenant Governor is free to reserve any bill or any decision for the consideration of the President. So it was a mixed decision, so to say. So thank you everyone. This has been the session on the 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Acts and Union Territories. Thank you.